if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get I'm going to get one of the big publishers and I won't have to market my stuff, I won't have to do any of that. That's not true.
Welcome to Writers Uncorked, the podcast where we uncork the truth about the writer's life. We're your hosts, bestselling authors Jenna and Michelle Scott, and we're here to bring you the no BS chats you've been craving.
Get ready to raise a glass to the real, unfiltered world of writers. This is Writers Uncorked.
All right, we are back, and we're going to be talking about today treating your author career like a business, which is super exciting. We're both very business-minded, so we are excited to dive into this one. So yeah, I guess maybe we can start talking about what do we mean by turning the author career into a business? Bring it back to basics of okay, well, what do you mean by treating it like a business?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. And I can speak on both sides of being a traditionally published author and an indie author. And there's a misnomer if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get one of the big publishers and I won't have to market my stuff, I won't have to do any of that. That's not true. It wasn't even true. I'm going to date myself right now because I started publishing. I was published traditionally in 2004. And it wasn't true then. And it is not true now. Because even back then, I went so far as to refinance my house and take the second of the mortgage and put it into my business, my book business. And what I did was I hired a publicist. I got a professional website done. There were all these things that your publisher does not do for you. So people have to keep that in mind, and you're going to have to do all of this if you're an indie author. So there's a number of steps that have to be done. But I think the first thing you have to do is wrap your brain around the mindset that this is my business. Yes, I'm a creative. Yes, I write stories, but just writing your story, just writing a good book isn't going to, you're not sending, and we will talk about this, and some people might think we're woo-woo and some people might really get into it, but it's not sending the right message to the universe as an author. It's like, I'm a writer then, and there's nothing wrong with that because you are a writer first and foremost. But if you don't treat this like a business, then it is seen as a hobby. And I know that also firsthand because way back when, before I was ever published, about 4 years before I was published, I had written all of these books and I'd written off a lot of things like conferences and printers and computers and so forth. And the IRS came back in and audited me and said, no, it's a hobby. So you have to consider that this is your business and treat it as such.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah. And even going back to, people think when you do go down if you're going down the traditional publisher, that option, you think, oh yeah, I'll just pass it all on to them and I'm done. All I can do is write. And that's how it's going to work. But yeah, from speaking to a lot of people, there isn't the amount of marketing that you could potentially do and put out there. They're obviously going to do a little bit, but to reach that next, the next sort of audience and stuff, you're going to have to do that work. And you're going to have to put it out there and do the marketing, not just set and, pass it on and that's it.
You are. And so you have to put on lots of hats as an author these days. Yeah. And step one, so writers, newbie people out there, they like the steps. They like that system, right? What are the steps for me too? So first, obviously, is getting your head in the game that this is a business and looking at it from a financial standpoint, how much do I have to put into this, and reading your royalty reports and understanding your ROI and all of those things. And I think you also, when I say treat it like a business, you also need to be a student because this publishing world is changing every day quickly. And if you don't stay on top of it, you're going to get lost in the crowd. So, but be discerning because there's a lot of people out there who will take advantage of you. So really be discerning, do your due diligence on what courses are good. There's some fantastic books out there that have been around for years. One of the best ones is Stephen King on writing. Every writer should have that in their library, right? So do the research first, right? You don't become a doctor without going to medical school, right? So you become a writer, an author by studying the craft. That's the first step of the.
And there's a lot of different options there. There's books and courses on the craft of writing. So we're always developing as writers in terms of our very first book, every author I talk to, they don't like promoting their first book if they're 2-3 years down the track or 10 years down the track, they're like, oh my God, my first book is rubbish compared to where I'm at now. And that's that's the beauty of writing. You're going to constantly build on your craft and get better and better. It's the same as having a job, and you're in a job for, however many years. You're constantly learning and upgrading and building on your craft. So there's that side of things of like learning that. But then there's the other side of the business side of it, of learning, okay, the marketing, what's working right now. And there's, even books tailored for writers, but also books that are tailored to business that you can use and adapt into the writing world, or the writing business or genre, or whatever you want to call it. Because those things that are working for other business, say, creatives, coaches, there's, coaching is a huge business, and there's heaps of coaches in different specific niches. Those, whatever they're doing, can be adapted into your writing career and how you market yourself online. So there's a few different areas that you can learn from in terms of courses, books. Yeah.
There is, and there's so much and I'm directing a lot of this towards new authors, new writers. A lot of writers are going to know that these things, but a lot won't. A lot don't understand or know how to manage KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, or should I publish on all platforms? How do I publish my print? How do I publish audio? These are all deep dive things that we'll have to do, I believe, in separate podcasts, or maybe at some point we have a workshop where we can really dive deep into this stuff, because there is a lot to unpack here. It'd be interesting to hear from listeners if that's something they would be interested in, that we could put together, because, from the get-go, like I said, and I know you agree, it's the mindset of having the business. It's understanding the financial aspect of the business. This is all outside of the craft of creating a book. This is completely outside of that. That is a whole separate, thing to tackle in itself. We will talk about craft here. We will talk about character, plot, themes, all of those pieces. There's just so much to being a writer, and it's really wonderful, and you can dive right into it, but you do wear all these hats, and and then I think you would be, what you have to lend to the community around your perspective of marketing for authors versus me as an indie author now, my perspective and how that looks. I have a question around that I think you could answer. I know you manage, quite a few authors and in various genres. How do you look at each author or each series or each book individually, and then plan a strategy for each author as an individual and their series? Because I'm a mystery thriller author. I know you have romance authors. How do you do that? How do you come up with your...
Well, there's different aspects to that, I guess, in terms of like, you're going to look at obviously each book individually, and depending on, if it's part of a series, what we look at in terms of strategy of like book launch plans and that type of thing. And then you've also got the overarching branding of your, author business, because we're not publishing every week, or, sometimes even every month. Like sometimes it's 2 books a year, or, whatever it might be that you're comfortable with. So outside of that, it's looking at, okay, well, do we have backlist books that we want to be talking about in marketing? What's the strategy around that? Looking at the overall brand, how we connect to the community, how we connect in that way. And also, looking at book launch planning and how we go about that. And there's a whole chat that we can do about that, because there's so many different elements that comes down to, launching a book. You want to be looking at least 6 months out, or, the more time you have to build that out, the better it is in terms of building out that successful launch, and looking at the different aspects in terms of the genre and what you're looking at, because we work with a lot of authors that are in different genres, even we've got thriller authors like yourself. We've got a couple of that, and like mystery, but then we've also got romance, but there's a vast, we've got dark romance and contemporary romance. So everyone's got a different aspect in terms of what they're doing for marketing, but there is sometimes there is obviously overlap, and that's the beauty of it, of okay, well, what's working in this genre, or what's working for this author, and us as a team always looking at, okay, well, there's this new thing that's happening, especially around TikTok at the moment. It's is it going to be banned? Is it not going to be banned? So what can we do in terms of development on that? And YouTube is obviously a big thing that I'm seeing, and what I'm hearing on podcasts and listening to, that, YouTube are really stepping up with their YouTube shorts. And that's where people are going to go if TikTok decides that we still don't know what's sort of happening, but things like that
Right.
of like, yeah, being ahead. And that's part of like business in terms of always looking at, if you sit back and be like, oh, I'm just going to put this book out and Amazon's going to do its job and I'm going to make 100 grand or whatever it might be. You can't like that. You're limiting yourself of putting it out there into the universe. It's very well, we'll talk about this on another episode about manifestation and putting it out there and being positive and stuff. But it's not just putting it out there and expecting it to come back. You've got to do the work.
I think, obviously there's probably a lot of people listening and watching who saw the movie The Secret, right? And there are some great things in there. And I think a lot of the people behind The Secret will now admit to you that the one thing that the movie didn't do was explain that it isn't just I can go in my office here and visualize and feel. There's that other step. It's actually showing the universe, God, that, hey, yeah, I've made this decision. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to develop a website. I'm going to write 5 pages a day. I'm going to take a class on Amazon ads, whatever, right? It's doing the work. And then it's like, once you make that decision, and it doesn't matter. It's not just for writing. It's anything in life. It's once you make a decision about something and you get committed, like really committed, then the universe goes, I got your back, right? Yeah. But if you're like, oh, yeah, I'm thinking that I'm going to write this idea and yeah, I'm going to throw this book out. No, it doesn't work like that, And I wanted to circle back. You brought up TikTok, and I want to say to some of the authors out there, now I tried TikTok, and this also comes around a little bit to what we were just talking about with manifestation. I didn't love it. So in reality, it was probably never going to work for me. It's not my space. It's just not my thing, right? However, YouTube is something that I think will be very effective for me, and I will be utilizing it. Podcasting, things like this will be effective. It is. I like these conversations with other writers. I do quite a few podcasts, enjoy that. And you will see a bump in sales, right? Coming up with good ads with you is also very fun for me. I can get behind that. So writing is fun for us. We love to write. We're writers. We love to do that, right? The business side should also be fun for you. Now, I'm not saying don't look at TikTok, but you're not going to put your energy into something that you're not enjoying, right? It's just not going to work that way. So and there's so many avenues. There's so many ways to sell books now. Find the avenue that you enjoy the most and throw yourself into it. If you enjoy writing newsletters, write the best newsletters you can and send one out every week. Build your list. Because if you don't like to get behind a camera, when a lot of writers don't, you don't have to.
Yeah, and that's the key of finding and trying it. Like, you don't know till you try. Like, and if it still feels uncomfortable, like I remember when I first got on video and I was like, oh my God, like this it doesn't feel good or natural, but I loved it. I loved that energy that I got after I got off it, and like the confidence that I felt in myself. And it was all down to confidence in myself. And the more I showed up and the more I did it, and now it's so natural and it feels good for me. Like, I love doing that. And that's when you know that, because when you do show up on video and when you put yourself out there, the energy, if I'm feeling it and I'm feeling good and I'm loving it, you're gonna know that. You're gonna feel that.
Well, it goes back to relatability, like with our characters, right? Relating to the characters. Yeah, I think you just find your avenue and you do it consistently. That's another thing. So get committed, right? Get committed to whatever that choice is. Not only writing however many pages a day or a week, but the avenue that you're going to utilize for your marketing, and maybe it's 1 or 2 things. Commit to those things. Right? And then be consistent. There has to be a consistency. I'm terrible at being consistent with newsletters because I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do this.
That's why I'm just like, I'm doing it. Like, I have to do that because you're not feeling it, right? And I'm waiting, and I'm like, I think I'm just going to take charge here and be like, okay, I've done this. Just check it off. Let me know, and then it can get that ball moving. Yeah.
But being consistent this way, I can show up. So it's showing up, right? You're not going to get anything without showing up. So that's key. I think too, when you talk about writing as a business, you have to be extremely organized. I'm not going to generalize, but I am going to, I'll go out on a limb and say a good share of us writers are not always terribly organized people, because, and that is stereotyping us, but we're creatives. And I know I'm looking at my desk right now going, I I don't know what's going on here. I won't show you, but you know, it's my kids call it my disorganized chaos, like, or my organized chaos. That's what they call it. Like, cause I know where I can find everything on this desk,
Yep.
but nobody else will. Right. So, but it is getting really organized with, you know, like for instance, you know, that I go on weekly just to check my back end of KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. I go in just to make sure my pricing is all lined up, like, right, like we didn't miss anything in a series, or we're being consistent there, right? And
Yeah.
even though I know we haven't gone in and changed anything, it's just the action of, okay, this is what I have to tick off this week. It's going onto the website every week and making sure that it's, you know, actually every morning making sure it's up, because there have been times it's been down and we both, you know, we're like, oh, you know, so it's doing those pieces and getting, you know, and calendaring it. If you don't put it in your calendar, and that goes for the writing time, you know, it's hard because I know a lot of us are parents and have other jobs and so forth and so on. But, you know, you're not going to write your book unless you sit down and calendar your time. And now for some people, if that looks like I can only write 1 day a week and or 2 days, I'm going to pick Saturday and Sunday because that's all I've got. But I also want to spend half those days with my family, which is fair because I work all week, you know, okay, block out 3 to 4 hours on Saturday and 3 to 4 hours on Sunday in the morning, maybe, or the evening. Find your time, find the time that works for you. But that's you know, calendaring is a big part of it.
And I can talking about, like, I actually am quite organized, but when it comes to like, I'm organized for other people, but when it comes to my stuff, I'm sometimes not. But I do time blocking. Since I learned that formula, I think I learned it off a coach and she was showing me, I time block like literally every hour. And sometimes I time block too much, that I don't allow like white space. I just fill all this stuff. But for me, it makes sense in my head. And it, you know, in the mornings, I've got my writing time, and then I've got like admin CEO stuff. I like to call it like CEO admin tasks that, you know, that are related to writing, whether it's doing the newsletter, whether it's you know, I've got to do a post on social media, I've got to show up on my stories or whatever it is. Having that time blocked each day, whether it be half an hour, like half an hour, you can do so much in your half an hour. Sit down, write out. I sit down on a Friday, I write out the week that's coming and be like, okay, these are the tasks that I need to get done, and I just do 3 tasks and be like, okay, these are what is urgent. If I get that done and I've got time left over in that time block, there's other stuff that could be done in that. But allowing and setting that time, and that's moving that needle forward, that we're talking about taking that action each week, taking that reoccurring things of checking KDP, get comfortable with your numbers. What are you spending money on? Look at your finances. Sometimes we are afraid to look at that stuff, but it's important to know, and where the money's coming in, where you might need to invest a little bit more money for the time being to build out that income, like looking at all that and treating it like a business, you know, like you would go to an everyday job and doing your tasks and, you know, for that business. I think that's one of those steps in that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to have a business account, and you're going to have to also look at your taxes and all of those pieces. And I'm going to go back actually to the beginning before I was ever published and give an idea of how I was even already in a business mindset. So this, like, again, I wasn't published. I didn't have an agent, but I called Mondays, Marketing Mondays. And every Monday I would look at Jeff Herman's guide, which still they put it out annually. Jeff Herman's guide to agents, editors, and publishers, I think, literary agents, editors, and publishers. I think that's what it's called. And in the guide, it's huge. It's like a old phone book for all you young people who don't know what the yellow pages are. We used to have big phone books. So Jeff Herman's guide will tell you specifically what literary agents are looking for what. They'll list like, oh, this, you know, Joe Schmo is looking for romance, fantasy, paranormal, right? Give the list. And then it will say, accepting email queries, wants a 1-page synopsis, or wants a 1-page synopsis and your first 2 chapters, right? And we'll do that. Now at the time, so I'm really going to date myself. This was just when email queries were kind of starting. So this is a lot of snail mail, right? I was sending stuff out. So every Monday I'd go through, I'd make a list. I'd get a list of 5. That was my goal each Monday. 5 editors, I was trying to get an agent at the time. 5 agents that I wanted to pitch. I would look at what they wanted. I'd package exactly what they were requesting, and then I'd send it off in the mail. And that's, so it's that kind of diligence. And then the rest of the day I would, I'd square away time to write before my, well, I had a little one at home, and my older ones were in school, but it's just, it is calendaring, and it's just having that mindset
moving the
around
needle
everything,
forward.
moving the needle forward.
And that's like, to recap based on what we're talking about today with the steps, like, I think, very much that first step probably is like treat the mindset of it, of like treating it like a business and taking that step forward that this is a business, and just getting comfortable with that feeling of, talking to your partner about it, your boyfriend, your husband, girlfriend, whatever, talking to them, or friends and family, being like, yeah, this is my business, and like keep talking about it and like saying that, because that's going to cement that it is a business. And if somebody, don't get discouraged if somebody's like, oh yeah, your hobby business, or says something, because sometimes that does, and it still triggers me of like, a family member, oh yeah, you're doing that thing on the side. It's like, no, I do this full time. Like, this is my thing. And that's just whatever they've got going on. Yeah.
You have to have that mindset. And I'll tell you, for years, I would say, people say, what do you do? Oh, I'm a writer. What have you published? What have you written? Right. And it just
what else do you do?
Right?
What else do you do?
And then finally, I was like, oh, I'm a New York Times bestselling author, right? It's like, but then you kind of just, you dumb yourself down. You're a writer. Treat it like, tell everybody. And if they want to say, oh yeah, that story, that romance she's writing, or that mystery she's writing, she's been doing that for 3 years, whatever. Who cares? Don't listen to the naysayers.
Yeah.
There.
And
if you know who you are, you know what you are, you know what you want to put out. So treat it as such.
Yeah, definitely.
And every day. Yeah. Remind yourself as you wake up every day. One of the things I used to do, this is a little bit more on the manifestation side. It was something my dad taught me. Because he taught me a lot about that. And he told me, write down every day, every morning when you wake up, and every night when you go to bed, write down, because he said, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? I want to be a best-selling author. Okay. Get a notebook and write every morning 22 times. I am a New York Times best-selling author. And then he goes, and do it again at night before you go to bed. And I did. I did it for years. And there were days where I would become really discouraged, because I'd get that snail mail back. And I remember one literary agent wrote, what's this shit? And like literally, like it's a pen. All right. It's so discouraging. But my dad did tell me, you will hit it, you will make it. And when you do, it's just going to roll so quickly. You'll be like, where did this all come from? And that did happen, but it took years.
And you put, you put in that work. You showed up.
I did. Yeah. There's the best is when you get announced as an overnight success, right?
Oh yeah. I've talked to so many authors, and they're like, I've been doing this 10 years.
The best was, the first time I spoke at a large writers conference in Southern California, it was, overnight success. And I stood up, and the first thing I said was, yes, overnight success, 12 years in the making.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We need to know that. So the next step I think would be the research around, okay, let's read books, read podcasts, whatever you can get into, and then looking at, okay, what am I going to start with, breaking it down to one platform or one technique, or whatever, if it's Facebook ads, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, whatever feels like it might be good for you, and then start practicing that each week, start showing up, building that out consistently, doing it in your recurring tasks, and then setting up your time blocking, anything like that, and just start. I think they're like the steps that I would take and what I would recommend in terms of showing up and really treating your author career like a business, and rolling with that.
Yep. And also look at other authors who have achieved what it is you want to achieve. Yeah. I think if you can find a coach in this, or a mentor, even just reading articles they've written, type in, for me, like say James Patterson, how did James Patterson achieve right? So it's doing those kinds of things. There are coaches out there. There are people who will mentor you. There are tons of workshops. So, you got to start somewhere. And those are the pieces of advice I would give on the business side of writing. Yeah.
Knowledge is everything. And the more you look at what everyone else is doing and get comfortable with that, the further along you're going to get, not just sitting there and hoping for it. Let's put it to action and actually, create this successful business that you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Yes, I've absolutely loved this chat, and I hope everyone listening has as well. Make sure you comment and let us know your main takeaways, what you're going to be doing, where you're at in your author career. If you've got any questions that we can answer on another episode, please drop them as well. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Tell us what you want to hear.